Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The date today is Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, and we are going to start our fourth part of this interdependence lecture. Now, the primary focus of this lecture will be about just kind of expanding from what we know. We'll take a look at aquatic food chains, understand the differences between autotrophs and heterotrophs. And, it's going to build up from here, but I think we need to explore the aquatic food chain a little bit because there are some variations among the aquatic levels versus the terrestrial levels of the food chain, as well as food webs. So, as far as the test goes, I want to say everybody that has taken the test, I appreciate that. I want to give a little bit of an update of a reminder on attendance. The way attendance is going to be done is based on you completing the lecture when they are supposed to be turned in. So when I see your lecture completed, and remember that the lectures are supposed to be completed within the class time frame, okay? I will always have my assignments up 99.9% of the time right at 10:20 to 10:30, right as if our class were to start. And it would be your responsibility to not go to bed at 6 o'clock a.m. when the sun is about to rise and then wake up at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You have to try to stay on track with this whole online thing as we progress through this online course, which I love, by the way. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with Interdependence Part 4. I am now on slide 2. It says autotrophs. In a food chain, there are two types of organisms. One organism is considered to be heterotrophs. Other organisms are considered to be autotrophs. Organisms that are autotrophs are organisms that have the ability to make their own energy. Plants that use photosynthesis to acquire their energy from the sun are a prime example of an autotroph. Because the animal can automatically make its own food, it does not have to hunt. In aquatic food chains, organisms that use chemosynthesis are also considered autotrophs because they use heat and chemical energy from volcanic vents to create their own energy. So, when you see this term autotroph, okay, you just got to remember, think about the word automatic. Plants are outside, they're automatically getting their energy from the sun. They don't have to do anything, they don't have to move, they just sit there and just be in an area where the sun can penetrate their leaves, so many hours a day, and then they're going to have the energy that they need. In an aquatic food chain, there's a variation to that. We have autotrophs, of course, animals in any food chain. There has to be a baseline animal that makes its energy automatically. The question is how. And in an aquatic food chain, we have animals that are autotrophic, that use something called chemosynthesis, which we are going to discuss more in depth as we move on. I am moving on now to slide 3. So in slide 3, I'm showing you examples of autotrophs for land or terrestrial organisms. Autotrophs consists of plants and photosynthetic bacteria. Anything that uses photosynthesis on land is an autotroph. For aquatic organisms, autotrophs consist of microorganisms such as phytoplankton. If you look at the documents or the two images below, you will see a plant flower that is sprouting. Obviously, high-speed video that's slowed down. And then if you look at the image to the right, you are looking at those chemosynthetic organisms from the deep sea that are known as phytoplankton, which we will get into in a moment. I am now moving on to slide 4. We are now on slide 4. Heterotrophs. Unlike autotrophs, which have the ability to automatically create their own energy from either the sun or a means of heat radiated from chemical energy, heterotrophs do not have the ability to create their own energy from a heat source. Heterotrophs are organisms that acquire their energy by feeding off of other organisms. For example, a caterpillar cannot use the sun as a direct source of energy for its body. It obtains its nutrition/energy by eating leaves from plants, which are living organisms. And once again, if a caterpillar eats a plant, we have to try to keep that in mind, that we are talking not just about animals, but about living organisms, okay, which obviously a plant is a living organism, and a living organism, it's a producer, acquires its energy from the sun. Caterpillar being a primary consumer, it has to eat something that is alive in order to be able to feed nutrition to its body. Okay? If we are talking about primary, secondary, tertiary consumers, whether you're a carnivore or a herbivore, it doesn't matter. You're still a heterotroph because you're acquiring your energy from a living organism, rather it be living plants or rather it be a fresh deer kill from a mountain lion. Still the same premise there. We are now on slide 5. So I provided you just 2 examples of heterotrophs, and as you can see, I'm incorporating C now because I just want you to start integrating yourself with that. You can see a whale right there feeding on what appears to be a school of fish, which of course is a heterotroph. It's eating a living organism. In this instance, the whale is eating the fish. And we have a gif of a caterpillar munching on that leaf like there is no tomorrow and feeding its body. And once again, a leaf is alive because it's attached to plants, and plants are living organisms. We are now on slide 6, understanding aquatic food chains. Aquatic food chains are slightly different than terrestrial food chains, primarily at the level of producer and primary consumer. Okay. Unlike with terrestrial producers, which obtain their energy from the sun via photosynthesis, aquatic producers obtain their energy from underwater volcanic vents in the form of chemosynthesis. Chemosynthesis is the ability for an organism to acquire its energy from chemicals, usually in the form of radiated heat. So let's go ahead and take a step back. Under normal circumstances, when we are discussing things like producers, we've already made an association in our brains that producers are plants that acquire their energy from the sun. Okay, a Mount Everest-sized height of water. So Mount Everest is this big going at the bottom of it, but yet underwater, as in 5,000 feet below the surface of the water, there are animals down there. The sun does not penetrate down that far. It is dark. It is black. You cannot see anything. So those animals, there's a whole ecosystem down there. How are these animals acquiring their nutrition, at least at the level of producer? There has to be something that is feeding them energy. And in this instance, we know, as we've learned from the past, that there are different types of volcanoes. We know about the Ring of Fire. There are volcanoes all over the place, at convergent boundaries, at divergent boundaries, the mid-ocean ridges, all volcanoes, all heat, all these different things that are irradiating different forms of energy. In this case, chemical energy that is irradiating heat. The idea here is that producers at the aquatic level, okay, or the level of producers in an aquatic environment, have the ability to sustain their bodies and nutrition by feeding automatically off of chemical energy. Their bodies just simply absorb that chemical energy, they absorb that heat, and it allows their metabolism to get moving so that they can survive. They take in these chemicals and they convert them into food for their bodies. These chemicals that I'm referring to are, for example, you have an underwater volcanic vent. We know that lavas come out of volcano, but then there's also heat that irradiates from them, at least if they're stable in one specific location. These animals will feed off of that heat. Okay, it's like a solar panel, sort of. It's not solar in the sense that it's sun, but it's solar in the sense that it's acquiring its energy in the form of heat. Plants do the same thing. They're not actually just necessarily feeding from the sun. They're feeding from the heat. If you take a solar panel and you put it under a light bulb, the solar panel, that light bulb will produce electricity for that solar panel. It doesn't have to be up to the sun. It just needs heat. That is the principle here to be able to obtain, okay? That acquiring heat via either the sun, producers that are on land, or via underwater volcanic vents for aquatic producers that use chemosynthesis. And that process, once again, of acquiring your energy from a heat source is called chemosynthesis. Photosynthesis, like photographs, light that captures an image, or in this case, captures energy for the plant's body. Chemosynthesis, chemical synthesis, the ability to take in chemicals and convert them into energy to spike the animal's metabolisms, that are those deep underwater animals that are at the level of producer, so that they can create their own energy for their body. We are now on slide 7. Aquatic producers. Below are images of phytoplankton, producers of the aquatic realm. Phytoplankton is the name. It's a general name. There are many different species of phytoplankton. Okay, but phytoplankton are the animals that are at the level of producers, okay, in the sea world, in the aquatic environment. And we're talking specifically not like lakes, but specifically the oceans, okay? And as you can see in that image right there, they're microscopic organisms. You know, they're not, I would say they're microbes, but they're microscopic organisms. They are alive. They are technically animals, okay? But they're just very tiny, you know, and not a lot to them. They're multicellular, yes, but there's not a whole lot to them. But they do have the ability to acquire their energy from chemosynthesis. So when we're talking about aquatic food chains, we are talking about a level of producers. Phytoplankton start the food chain, whereas in terrestrial environments, plants start the food chain. In aquatic environments, phytoplankton start the food chain. Now, slide 8 is going to be a slide that I'm going to go ahead and use later, but you'll be able to use this slide right here when you do your short response for the paper that I've created for you. It shows you primary producers, and you can see how phytoplankton are labeled there at the bottom next to plants. You also see the term zooplankton next to herbivores. Zooplankton is something that we are going to be talking about in our next lecture. Let's go ahead and do a recap real quick. New terms that we learned today: autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs, the word automatic is an autotroph. They're automatically creating their energy from a heat source, rather it be the sun for photosynthetic animals such as plants, or rather it be a means of chemical energy via chemosynthesis from animals such as phytoplankton. Okay. We've learned that aquatic and terrestrial food chains are slightly different in the sense that at the level of producer and the primary consumers, they're a little bit different. There are no herbivores in aquatic food chains, okay? Minus the phytoplankton, every level of animal going up that is a carnivore. It's a little bit of a different environment because there are no plants that are in the water in that sense, at least in the deep ocean. And I'm not talking about seaweed and things like that. There are animals that do eat seaweed that would be considered herbivores, but the majority of the aquatic environment in terms of the seas and the oceans, they're just chemosynthetic organisms such as phytoplankton, which occupy the role of being at the producer level. Okay, and you can use that. The other things that we discussed, of course, again, phytoplankton are essentially the producers. They are aquatic. And there are a few other things that we have learned in terms of some different examples of autotrophs. Autotrophs are going to be plants. Phytoplankton, heterotrophs would be anything at the level of primary consumer to quaternary consumer. If you are a primary, secondary, tertiary, or quaternary consumer, you are a heterotroph. You are feeding off of another organism, rather it be phytoplankton, rather it be plants. If you are eating something that is considered to be alive, you are therefore a heterotroph because you cannot create your own energy via the sun or a form of chemical energy for deep sea aquatic creatures. So you will have an aquatic food chain assignment coming up this week. Kind of similar to the one where you had to fill in the blank, a blank thing like you did for the terrestrial food chain. Obviously, you're not going to be able to go and find an aquatic food chain in your backyard. I wish I could have something like that. That would be, of course, mega epic for us to explore the deep sea environment, but we won't be having something like that. But I may have you create your own aquatic food chain, maybe using Google Images in the future. Any questions, please let me know, and I will see you next time. Adios.